Hello and welcome. Tonight, Supreme Court overturns appeal court judgment sacking Kano, Plateau and Zamfara state governors from office, affirms the victory of Lagos, Abia, Ebonyi, Bauchi and Cross River state governors in the 2023 election. It's jubilation in Kano and Plateau states as supporters of the NNPP and PDP troop out in the streets of Kano and Jos to celebrate the victory of Governors Yusuf and Muftuang at the Supreme Court. The President suspends all programs administered by the National Social Investment Program Agency for 6 weeks. In the first instance, sets up panel to review the agency's operations for necessary reforms. And the largest single-train refinery in the world, Dangote Refinery, begins production after receiving 6 million barrels of crude supply.
And on business news tonight, banking stocks push the NGX All-Share Index to world's second best performing spot in 2024.
On sports news tonight, Africa is agog as 34th edition of the Cup of Nations tournament begins in Cote d'Ivoire tomorrow.
And from Abuja, federal government launches the National Philanthropy Office to raise $200 million to support micro, small and medium enterprises in the country.
And in international news from London, the Houthis have vowed that US and UK strikes on their positions in Yemen will not go without punishment or retaliation.
The Supreme Court today brought its gavel down on 8 appeals arising from the outcome of the March 18, 2023 governorship election in the country. In what could be described as landmark judgments, the Apex Court reversed the sacking of Governors Abba Yusuf of Kano State, Caleb Mutfwang of Plateau State, and Dauda Lawal of Zamfara State. Many had watched for the final verdict on 3 of the 4 cases from the northern part of the country with bated breath. Now, the 4th verdict from that region was that which affirmed the election of Governor Bala Mohammed of Bauchi State. Our judiciary correspondent, Emanuela Ekele, reports.
It was a full day at the Supreme Court as the Apex Court takes a decision on appeal of 8 governorship cases. The governors of Kano, Plateau, Bauchi and Zamfara states were in the courtroom waiting for the final outcome. In reaching a decision on the Kano governorship appeal, the Apex Court says the Court of Appeal was wrong in affirming the decision of the tribunal, which held that Governor Yusuf did not win the majority of lawful votes cast at the governorship election. The court subsequently restored the deducted votes for the candidates of the new Nigerian People's Party to reinstate the victory of Governor Yusuf. On the Plateau governorship election, the court held that the issue of party primary was an internal affair of political parties over which the tribunal and Court of Appeal lacked jurisdiction. The court also pointed out that contrary to the claim of the petitioners and the judgment of the appellate court, the order of the Plateau High Court was not disobeyed by the PDP, as evidence showed that a fresh primary was conducted. In her submission, Justice Helen Ogunwumiju berated the Court of Appeal for going into the issue of nomination and sponsorship, despite several decisions of the Apex Court, to the effect that the political party cannot challenge the primary election of another. For the Zamfara governorship judgment, the Supreme Court held that the petitioners never provided sufficient evidence to prove allegations of irregularities, non-compliance and corrupt practices. The Apex Court subsequently set aside the order for a rerun in 3 local government areas of the state.
It was strange that the lower court came to the conclusion that the allegation of malpractice was proved in some areas and that a fresh election should be conducted. Thankfully, the Supreme Court has rightly intervened and no other election will be conducted because the governor of Zamfara State, duly elected by the people of Zamfara State, stands to my right.
The order of court was obeyed, but most importantly, we canvassed the case from the tribunal to the Supreme Court that the court of law does not have jurisdiction to inquire into nomination, sponsorship. And the tribunal, led by Justice Rita Irele Ifije, confirmed that the court does not have jurisdiction. God bless their souls. And their judgment, the everyday judgment, was set aside by the Court of Appeal. And today the Supreme Court has done them proud to restore their judgment. God bless them.
You remember that we won at the tribunal. They went to the Court of Appeal. We won also at the Court of Appeal. And now, for the third time and for the final time, the highest court in the land, the Apex Court, the Supreme Court, has also given him victory. So we are very happy, and as it is said, all is well that ends well.
The Apex Court also affirmed the election of Governor Bala Mohammed of Bauchi State. The Supreme Court is expected to review additional appeals in the upcoming days. Emanuela Ekele, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, there has been reaction to the Supreme Court verdict in Kano, where people took to the streets to celebrate. Well, many marched towards the house of the former NNPP presidential candidate, Rabiu Kwankwaso, in jubilation over their victory at the Supreme Court. Our correspondent, Sadiq Ilyasu, reports.
The Supreme Court has delivered its judgment on the Kano governorship election, setting aside the Tribunal and Appeal Court judgments by affirming Abba Yusuf as the duly elected governor of the state. Supporters of the Konkosia movement are excited and hit the streets to celebrate in style.
Yes, we are feeling so excited and so jubilation. So the people of Konkosia have gathered from the different part of Kano to 44 local government to celebrate in the University of Politics here at Mila Road, Kano here.
We are happy today. We are happy. Congratulations, Abba Kabir Yusuf. Congratulations to Kano State people. Congratulations to Nigeria.
Absolutely today, I feel very, very happy for today. I can't imagine the happy that I'm feeling today because of this is unexpected judgment from the Supreme Court.
You can see behind me, a lot of people have come out to the street to show their love after the Supreme Court has delivered its judgment and set aside the tribunal judgment and the appeal court judgment.
While some marched to the residence of Rabiu Kwankwaso, others performed stunts with their vehicles. The chairman of the Conference of Northern Civil Society Networks, Ibrahim Weya, describes the Supreme Court judgment as a mirror of the development of democracy in the country.
Well, we are beginning to see change, and this is exactly what we expected. And we do not expect anything less than this because it's high time that President Bola Tinubu begin to really introduce the needed reforms that we really require so that we can uphold the best practices and principles of democracy. In a situation where the mandate of the people have been snatched through judicial process, it's not really a healthy situation, and it's not really going to work well in our democracy. But we are beginning to see that President is now determined to allow democracy to take its course and to allow the mandate of the people to prevail.
The Secretary of the Arewa Consultative Forum, Muhammad Mustafa, urges on both parties to accept the Supreme Court judgment.
See, the Apex Court is the final court, is the last court. And their judgment means a lot to the democratic dispensation in Nigeria. And I could remember some few days ago or few months ago, all the political parties in Kano embarked on prayers for Almighty to choose the best for. And we believe this is the best God has chosen. And I want to urge all the political parties to please maintain their restraint. I want to thank them for what I've seen in Kano today. There's a relative peace in Kano. I want to thank the security agencies for their effort in trying to keep the peace. And the court is the last hope for the common man. And their decisions will go a long way in the history of politics in Nigeria.
Many are relieved by the Supreme Court's affirmation of Abba Yusuf as the duly elected governor in Kano State, especially those who have been anxious about the tense and uncertain atmosphere in the state following the general election. Sadiq Ilyasu, Channels Television News.
Now, the celebration was not limited to Kano, as supporters of the People's Democratic Party in Jos, the Plateau state capital, also trooped out to rejoice following the upturning of the judgment against Governor Caleb Mutfwang's victory. Some political leaders in the state also commended the Apex Court judgment, which has rekindled the confidence in the judiciary and brought stability to the state.
The streets of Jos, the Plateau state capital, deserted in the early hours of Friday as the Supreme Court reached the verdict on the governorship appeal of the governor, Caleb Mutfwang. Residents are indoors awaiting the decision, wary of what the streets will be like after the decision of the Apex Court. The streets immediately take a different dimension as soon as the news filtered in that the Apex Court had affirmed the election of Governor Mutfwang. The Special Advisor on Political Affairs to the Governor believes that the verdict presents hope for the federal and state lawmakers that were removed by the lower court.
The importance of this decision of the Supreme Court is that there is hope for democracy. Secondly, that the judicial system can be relied upon, especially at the apex level. And what transpired today has given us a lot of hope that no matter how bad the system is, at the Supreme Court, there could be hope and there could be justice. For us on the Plateau and the PDP family in particular, it has simply vindicated our position. The position we have held ever since from the Court of First Instance at the Tribunal, that the issue at stake, one, was a pre-election matter. Secondly, that as far as we are concerned, the second primaries was as good as obeying the court order. But for some reasons best known to the Court of Appeal, they did what we did. And today the Supreme Court have put it to rest.
The verdict brings an end to the legal tussle and makes way for the governor to concentrate on the issue of governance.
Well, the governor of Plateau State, Caleb Mutfwang, has been reacting to the Supreme Court judgment affirming him as governor of the state. Speaking during an interview on our political program, Politics Today, the governor explains that he is glad over the outcome, and particularly the Apex Court was able to carry out due diligence and right the wrongs passed on to it.
Our jurisprudence shown is based on the doctrine of stare decisis. That is judicial precedent, or put another way, judicial discipline. And therefore, once the Supreme Court a superior court has stated what the law is, has interpreted what the law is, that interpretation itself becomes law. The law has never been unambiguous. The issues canvassed in my case were anchored basically about the issues of nomination and sponsorship of candidates, which is not within the jurisdiction of tribunals. The other issue had to do with a purported disobedience of a court order, which was a contrived lie that was packaged and sold to the Court of Appeal, and it fell for it because there was no court order that was disobeyed. And today I'm glad that the Supreme Court made appropriate findings that every court order that was given had been obeyed, and that the Court of Appeal strayed beyond the boundaries of its jurisdiction in saying that I was not properly and duly nominated by my party.
As expected, reactions have been trailing the judgments, with the governors indeed involved expressing delight on the development. According to the governor of Kano State, Abba Yusuf, who was present in court to witness the judgment, the victory reaffirms his commitment to ensure adequate management of the state's business, saying the verdict shows the election process was not a fluke.
I feel extremely happy. As you can see, so many people are happy. They are cheering. They are feeling obliged. So I feel happy. The Supreme Court have confirmed that there was no any illegality as far as the election is concerned. They were saying illegal ballot papers. INEC had confirmed that the ballot papers belonged to them. They were issued by them. And the Supreme Court justices have just confirmed also that there was no any illegality. So people are aware, and I feel justified. I feel that that issue has been set aside because there was no justification whatsoever in that.
In part two, after the break, Supreme Court affirms election victory of 4 governors from the South, plus more governors react to the Supreme Court judgment on their appeals. Do stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, coming to you live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Supreme Court upturns appeal court judgment sacking Kano, Plateau and Zamfara state governors from office, affirms the victory of Lagos, Abia, Ebonyi, Bauchi and Cross River state governors in the 2023 elections. It's jubilation in Kano and Plateau states as supporters of the NNPP and PDP troop out in the streets of Kano and Jos to celebrate the victory of Governors Yusuf and Muftwang at the Supreme Court. The President suspends all programs administered by the National Social Investment Program Agency for 6 weeks in the first instance, sets up panel to review the agency's operations for necessary reforms. And the largest single train refinery in the world, Dangote Refinery, begins production after receiving 6 million barrels of crude supply. The Supreme Court has also decided on 4 appeals from the southern part of the country, affirming the election of Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos State, Governor Francis Nwifuru of Ebonyi State, Governor Alex Otti of Abia State, and Governor Basi Otu of Cross River State. It was a unanimous judgment for all the appeals as the Apex Court upheld the decision of the lower courts.
Really to thank God that we've been able to get to the end of all of this court proceeding process, and it gives us the full profile, to affirm our victory at the polls. But pretty much it's really just to thank all of our citizens in Lagos for their support, irrespective of what party affiliation you are, and to call everyone, all Lagosians, to join us once again on our Greater Lagos journey. It's a journey where we've said no one will be left behind. We are transforming the state, the city. We're building structures, processes, institutions that will outlive us, and we're putting in place a governance structure that would improve the economic, relevance of Lagos in the country. And so for us, it's not just about a victory; it's about the people that have put in all of their hope and aspiration into our government. So really, is to ask everybody to join us, irrespective of whatever party it is, and to see that indeed the train in Lagos is moving.
Sincerely apologize for that mix-up in that report. Well, back to the Supreme Court has also decided on 4 appeals from the southern part of the country, affirming the election of Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos State, Governor Francis Nwifuru of Ebonyi State, Alex Otti of Abia State, and of course Basi Otu of Cross River State. It was indeed a unanimous judgment for all the appeals, as the Apex Court upheld the decision of the lower courts.
In an unprecedented move, the Supreme Court sits to decide the appeals in 8 governorship appeals.
Thank you. The five-member panel of the Supreme Court commenced the proceedings by dismissing the appeals of Mr. Gbadebo Rodsvival of the Labour Party and Mr. Abdulaziz Adediran of the People's Democratic Party against the election of Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos State. In dismissing the appeals, the five-member panel clarified that a citizen with dual citizenship can only forfeit his right to be elected governor by renouncing his Nigerian citizenship. On the issue of membership for Governor Alex Otti of Abia State, the appellants had contended that the governor wasn't validly nominated and sponsored by the Labour Party at the time of his election. However, the court dismissed the petition of governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Oke Ahiwe, describing it as frivolous and vexatious. The appeal court also affirmed the victory of Governor Francis Nwifuru of Ebonyi State, dismissing the appeal of Mr. Chukwuma Odi of the People's Democratic Party. While affirming the victory of Governor Basioto of Cross River State, the Apex Court held that the appellant was unable to show that the governor forged his secondary school certificates.
The duly elected governor of Cross River State, who had over 266,000 votes and defeated him with over 79,000 votes, talking about his qualification, academic qualification, even when they themselves attached documents to show that Senator Prince Basi Otu, the governor of Cross River State, not only had primary school, secondary school, but also had a University of Calabar degree, Bachelor of Science, Sociology.
Judgment of the Supreme Court is, to my opinion, sellable, straight to the point, and able to state that yes, truly, the governor of Lagos State and the deputy governor of Lagos State were both qualified and won this election.
We are happy that today, Abia people can rest. Mr. Governor's election has been further validated by their lordships, and they can now face the real business of governance, with greater vigor. We thank their lordship for a very, very sound judgment that meets the people's expectation.
The decisions of the Apex Court settles the elections of these governors, and they can now focus their attention on governance issues.
Governor Basioto of Cross River State has also been reacting to his victory at the Supreme Court, promising to deliver on all his campaign promises. The governor was speaking in Calabar, the state capital, while thanking God for the judgment which affirmed him as the winner of the 2023 governorship election. Governor Otu says that party politics are over and urges everyone to come together and work collectively for the growth of the state.
It is not easy for everybody to come and realize that my people first agenda is people first agenda. I don't care which parties you belong. After election, parties are over, party politics are over. We are now all persevering. No matter the extent you play the politics to, your brother in Cross River, your sister in Cross River is still your brother and sister, and nothing can change it. And no condition is permanent. No condition at all. So if we segregate against this other one, how are we going to grow? Because it's the collective wealth of all of us that improves our children, that creates wealth and prosperity, that we are able to live well. So we open our doors and ask all other parties to come in and participate in ideas. And I want to assure everyone, we are not short of ideas this morning. We have a mountain as a pyramid, which we are moving forward.
Reactions also coming from Governor Alex Otti of Abia State, who has applauded the verdict upholding his election, saying the judiciary has affirmed the understanding that it's the last hope of the common man. Addressing journalists in Abia State shortly after the judgment, Governor Otti commended the president for his neutrality. He also called for collaboration from all citizens to build a state, stressing his readiness to work with individuals across party lines.
We want to thank the judiciary for being firm and not letting itself be derailed by smart arguments from lawyers. Today, the judiciary has affirmed that understanding that it is the last hope of the irrespective of your ethnic leanings, irrespective of your religious leanings. We are one and the same people. And from now on, division will not be allowed in Abia State.
Still ahead on the news at 10, banking stocks pushed the NGX All-Share Index to world's second best performing spot in 2024. That's in business news. To join us again. Welcome back. The President has held a meeting with governors of the All Progressives Congress under the aegis of the Progressive Governors Forum. After the closed-door meeting, which held at the Council Chamber in the State House, the chairman of the forum and governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodimma, said the meeting focused on the working relationship between the federal and sub-national governments. The governors also applauded the president for some funding interventions to the states and his efforts towards addressing insecurity. Let's now head to the nation's capital, where Gloria Umezuke is standing by to give us the very latest from our Abuja studios. Great to see you again, Gloria, and thank God it's Friday.
Indeed, thank God it's Friday. Many thanks, Ayo. Here in Abuja, we begin with the president, who has suspended all programs administered by the National Social Investment Program Agency, NSIPA, for a period of 6 weeks in the first instance. The suspended programs are Empower, Conditional Cash Transfer, Government Enterprise and Empowerment Program, and Homegrown School Feeding Program. In a statement, the Director of Information in the SGF's office, Mr. Shego Imohimosen, explains that the decision follows the ongoing investigation of alleged fraud in the management of the agency and its programs. He adds that President Bola Tinubu has also constituted a ministerial panel to conduct a thorough review of the agency's operations with a view to recommending necessary reforms of the NSIPA. Dr. Betta Edu, who headed the Ministry and Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, which supervised the agency before her recent suspension, her predecessor, Sadiya Umar Farouk, as well as the former head of the agency, Halima Shehu, are currently being investigated by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission over their roles in the allegations of mismanagement of the ministry's funds. History has been made as the largest single-train refinery in the world, Dangote Refinery, located in Nigeria's commercial hub, Lagos, has begun production in the early hours of today. This comes after the refinery received 6 million barrels of crude supply, the last batch of 1 million which was supplied this week. The refinery, owned by Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote, is expected to produce petrol, diesel, aviation fuel, and kerosene, among others. But the initial run will be for the production of diesel and aviation fuel. The 650,000 barrel per day Dangote refinery is touted to be a game changer for Nigeria's economy when fully operational, by helping to halt the country's reliance on fuel imports. The federal government has launched a national philanthropy office that aims to raise $200 million to support small and medium enterprises in the country. Vice President Kashim Shettima, who launched the office at the Old Banquet Hall of the State House, Abuja, says at least 1 million jobs will be created through the initiative. Our State House correspondent, Emperor Simon, reports.
Vice President Kashim Shettima is here to launch the first ever National Philanthropy Office to be established by the federal government of Nigeria. The initiative aims at expanding impact investments to support startup businesses and create job opportunities in the country.
The Nigeria Philanthropy Office will establish 12 hubs across the country, across the 6 geopolitical zones, 2 per zone. And it will also invest in startups in the fashion sector, light manufacturing, particularly furniture manufacturing, sustainable agriculture, and renewable energy solutions. And I'm pleased to say that 50% of all the investments will target women.
Vice President Shettima says through the National Philanthropy Office, vulnerable enterprises will be supported.
This initiative proposes to raise $200 million in grants and non-financial investments through local and international teams to provide support to startups in the key sectors within the MSME space that drives job creation in Nigeria. The overarching aim is to generate 1 million jobs directly and indirectly within the MSME ecosystem. Additionally, eligible MSMEs will receive grants ranging from 5 to 10 million naira. An emphasis will be placed on supporting women-led businesses.
He inaugurates the local implementation committee made up of members of the private sector.
The private sector is going to drive it. The government is going to give them all the support that they require to ensure that it's successful.
What's important for us is creating the kind of structure and framework where we can create impact. And I think that's one of the most important things we're bringing on board, our expertise, technical support, and then being able to create clear pathways for impact.
Stakeholders here are optimistic that this partnership between the government and the private sector players will also help in bridging access to funding, which remains a challenge to the growth of MSMEs in Nigeria. From the presidential villa, Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
To company news, First Bank of Nigeria Limited, Nigeria's premier and leading financial inclusion services provider, has organized a forum for experts to discuss the future of Nigerian economy. Drawn from the public and private sectors, panelists who explored opportunities as well as challenges agreed that working with a well-positioned financial institution like First Bank, Nigeria's economy can take that giant leap going forward.
2024 is a promising year of expansion for Nigeria, according to the latest Nigeria's projection, which puts the growth rate at 3.3%, up from 2.9% in 2023. And First Bank Nigeria Limited wants its customers and potential business associates to take full advantage of them.
Given the size of our economy, whether you are looking at 3% or 3.7% growth, the growth is significant, and serious players, we do have opportunity to tap into this, and that is the focus of this morning's edition.
Economists say Nigeria is not insulated from effects of global and regional and local occurrences, but can develop the capacity to overcome them and make significant progress, both macro and micro levels.
Whenever things happen anywhere in the world, don't assume that it doesn't affect you. Because we woke up here in Nigeria and the cost of bread, a wheat derivative, on our breakfast table became higher. And we wondered what happened. We now discovered that Ukraine is systemic in the supply of grains to the world market, 24.1%.
First Bank says its doors remain open to existing and potential customers to assist them with the necessary tools to succeed.
For many of you clients that are here, you've given us feedback. We've moved on from just being a banker. We've moved, we use this and we've used it for many years. The aim is to be a trusted business advisor. We will continue to do that in 2024. Again, it's really about advice and the support.
The right line of panelists suggests ways through which public and private sector participation can bring about the needed growth in 2024.
So we're going to be targeting, supporting those businesses specifically. So that's a cohort. And actually, FBN Holdings is one of those companies. So we're reaching out to ask you what your challenges are, and working with you specifically.
What the government needs to do is to have a clear road plan on how we can move from 1.65% to a minimum of 10%.
We're able to bring one SME to talk to another MSME because usually within the communities we've built, there are solutions in there.
These discussions serve to open up avenues which business entities in Nigeria can leverage while taking advantage of products and availability high-level services within the First Bank Group to take their businesses to new heights.
Well, that's it from the nation's capital. We go over now to Will Ibong for business news.
Thank you, Gloria, and welcome to Business News. Public officers in the various sectors of the economy have to be put to tax to achieve the objectives of the 2024 budget, and that's according to the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Senator Abubakar Bagudu. Senator Bagudu made this known today while briefing journalists in Lagos, where he reiterated the federal government's plans to ramp up investments in the economy.
We all owe our nation a duty to draw attention to the fact that there is a lot that private sector can do. There is a lot of money out there. The role of public officers is even to lead so that that private capital can come. And President has been doing so, leading himself. He visited India, UAE, Germany, and a couple of other countries, and it's all to stress the importance of let's roll our sleeves, let's interact with investors, let's meet and hear their expectations, and they have started to respond. We have seen, it has been announced that a coastal railway of over 780 kilometers from Lagos to Calabar by private sector is going to be undertaken. We have seen Siemens investing more and expanding, supporting us more to expand our power sector. We have seen gas deals. So every day we are seeing deals in different sectors.
Now, foreign airlines have renewed their threat to leave Nigeria soon due to their inability to completely repatriate funds, which is estimated around $700 million. The Association of Foreign Airlines and Representatives in Nigeria, which made this known, described the $61.64 million released by the federal government as a drop in the ocean, which will not resolve the issues. The association explains that some international airlines may join Emirates Airlines and Etihad in exiting the country if the trap fund saga is not resolved. Now, the Nigerian equities are beating their peers in Europe, Middle East, and other parts of Africa, making it the second best performing stock market globally in 2024. Now, the NGX All-Share Index is up 11% year-to-date, trailing only Argentina globally after advancing almost 60% in the last year, and this is driven by gains in banking stocks. Now, this comes as pension funds and institutional investors pile into stocks on expectations of record profits from lenders booking revaluation gains on their foreign exchange positions. Now, speaking of positions, Ini John Mekwa gives us the details of the NGX performance in today's trading session.
Hello, Will. Well, I'm glad to tell you that at the close of Friday's trade, we are back to the 83,000 level. We couldn't make it intraday, but at the close of trade, we're at 83,042.96 after going up 0.54%, and the market cap at 45.442 trillion naira. The market mover today, almost 3% up. That's GTCO to close at 46 naira 30 kobo. Well, this stock has made a lot of run today, but it's not alone. When you look at the counters, even though Zenith Bank lost, GTCO was so strong that it did that. But the consumer goods also is another place where investors looked at. Boa Foods, Unilever, Cadbury pushed it up 2.36% for that counter. Oil and gas at 0.19%. So I am glad this week is closing, the first full trading week in 2024, closing with the bull, dominating the market.
That's a wrap on business news. It's back to Ayotunde for the rest of the news at 10.
Many thanks, Will. The United States says it is not interested in a war with Yemen, but will not hesitate to use further force to stop Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. These comments from the White House come after US-UK military strikes targeted Houthi positions, including command centers, munition depots, and air defense systems. Here's Simon Pusey with more on this and other international news in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The Houthis vow that US and UK strikes on their positions in Yemen will not go without punishment or retaliation. Overnight, military strikes by air and sea targeted 16 Houthi positions, including command centers, munitions depots and air defense systems. US President Joe Biden said the targeted strikes in Yemen were a clear message that the United States and its partners will not tolerate attacks on its personnel or allow hostile actors to imperil freedom of navigation, and that the action will protect the free flow. The Iran-backed group pledges to continue its attacks on ships in the Red Sea and its support for Hamas in Gaza. United States President Joe Biden confirmed the U.S.'s leading role in the attacks against Houthi rebels. In a statement from the White House, he said, "Today at my direction, U.S. military forces, together with the United Kingdom and with support from Australia, Bahrain, Canada and the Netherlands, successfully conducted strikes against a number of targets in Yemen used by Houthi rebels to endanger freedom of navigation in one of the world's most vital waterways. These strikes are in direct response to unprecedented Houthi attacks against international maritime vessels in the Red Sea, including the use of anti-ship ballistic missiles for the first time in history." Well, oil prices climbed about 3% on Friday as some oil tankers diverted course from the Red Sea following those overnight air and sea strikes. Brent crude futures were up 2.9% at $79.62 a barrel, while US West Texas Intermediate crude futures climbed 3% to $74.15. Shipping giant Maersk and others are diverting vessels away from the Red Sea, warning customers of further disruption. Israel has said South Africa has distorted the truth in its case to the International Court of Justice, where it is accusing Israel of genocide. South Africa had presented a sweeping counterfactual description of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, according to their lawyers. South Africa says Israel is committing genocide against the Palestinians in its war in Gaza. It is also asking the court to order Israel to halt its military activity. The ICJ is the United Nations highest court. Its rulings are theoretically legally binding on parties to the ICJ, which include Israel and South Africa, but are not enforceable. Israel is giving its defense to the court a day after South Africa presented its case.
Israel's actions in restricting its targeting practices to attack military personnel or objectives in accordance with international humanitarian law in a proportionate manner in each case, as well as its practice of mitigating civilian harm, coupled with the facilitation of humanitarian assistance, all demonstrate the precise opposite of any possible genocidal intent.
Rishi Sunak says the UK will provide £2.5 billion of military aid to Ukraine over the coming year, Britain's largest annual commitment since Russia's invasion. The Prime Minister made the announcement during a rare visit to the country, where he will also sign a new agreement supporting its long-term security. Officials said the package will provide Ukraine with long-range missiles, air defence and artillery shells. Some £200 million will be spent on drones, most of which will be UK-made. Officials said the military package for the next financial year, beginning in April, would result in the largest delivery of drones to Ukraine by any country.
The aid that we've got in place already runs through to the early part of this year, so we're acting in advance of that expiring with a new commitment of £2.5 billion, more than we've provided in previous years. It represents the seriousness of the situation here and our determination to stand with Ukraine.
And finally, Cape Verde has been given the status of being malaria-free by the World Health Organization after 3 years of no local cases of the disease.
I have certified Cape Verde as malaria-free.
Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus from the World Health Organization attended an event on the island country to celebrate the milestone. Experts have described it as a major achievement. In 2022, 580,000 people in Africa died from the disease, amounting to 95% of fatalities worldwide. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel's studios in Lagos.
Thanks, Simon. In sports news, the Confederation of African Football has maintained that this year's Cup of Nations will reveal the abundance of talent on the continent eve of the opening game between host Cote d'Ivoire and Guinea-Bissau. CAF President Patrice Motsepe said the Ivorian government has invested around $1.5 billion in improving infrastructure as it prepares to host the tournament for the first time since 1984. That has included the construction of the 60,000 capacity in Mbikpe Olympic Stadium on the northern outskirts of Abidjan, which will host Saturday's opening game as well as the final on February 11. Meanwhile, Cote d'Ivoire will go into the opening game of the tournament on Saturday against Guinea-Bissau without Sebastian Halle as their star striker recovers from injury. Halle has been struggling with an ankle problem since December last year. Away from the continent, Chelsea head coach Mauricio Pochettino admits he's worried by France forward Christopher Nkunku's latest injury setback. Nkunku has missed Chelsea's last 2 games with a hip problem after being sidelined for much of the season due to a knee injury. And that's a wrap on sports. Is back to Ayotunde.
Many thanks, Kelly. And the main news again. The Supreme Court today upturned the appeal court judgments sacking Kano, Plateau and Zamfara state governors from office and affirmed the victory of Lagos, Abia, Ebonyi, Bauchi and Cross River state governors in the 2023 elections. That's the news at 10. Many thanks for watching. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. Do have a good weekend.